Hello, hello, hello. Hi, happy New Year. Do let me know. Well, if you don't say hello, I don't know who's online, and that always feels so super weird when you're presenting. So I'd love to know who's here. Please say hello to me. Let me know how you're doing, how your new year has started for you. Has it been good to you? Has it been challenging? Hi, Michelle. Great to see you. Hi, Hashita, Florence. Hello. Hi, Jasmine. Hello, hello. Hi, Katie. Hey, Kirsten. Hi, Dawn. Hey, Zoe. Hello, Anne. Oh, in Michigan. How are things in Michigan? Hi, Jessica. Hey, Tracy. So good to connect with you all. Hi, Samantha. Hi. Oh, hey, guys. Hello. Lovely, lovely, lovely to connect with everyone. Erin, you're here. Hi, great to see you. Happy New Year. I'm so excited for today's session. I cannot believe that hi Candice. I can't believe that over 600 of you signed up for today's session. 600. Isn't that extraordinary? Hi Colette, Happy New Year. So we're just going to give it a minute or two whilst I know exactly, Donna. It's mad, right? We're just going to give it a minute or two whilst everybody hops on board, comes over from their lunch break and comes to join us. I'm just going to double check. I always have to do this because I am always technologically challenged, that everybody has what they need. I think so. I think the tech seems to be working okay. We all seem to be doing okay. Elka, hello, how are you? Hi, Layla. Hi, everyone. Oh, how fantastic for us all to be sharing this space together and looking for a good dose of resilience for moving into 2025. And the session is recording, Kristen. It's not recording anybody's voices or faces apart from mine, but we will be sharing the recording after today's session. Hi, Sarah. Great to see you. Thanks so much, so many of you being here live. It's really lovely to share a kind of communal space together where we're all ultimately facing similar challenges. And I'm really looking forward to sharing as many of my tools and experience as possible with you that I hope will be really useful. And there's going to be a sort of strong theme throughout today's session and that we're really going to focus on. And I'm going to be so excited to hear back from you in the next week or two, even perhaps if you're watching this on record, well, what do you call it? Playback. If you're watching this on playback, I'd still love to hear from you. Let me know what's landed, what's worked. Hey, James, great to see you. So many of you familiar names, and hi, Jacqueline, and some I have not seen for a while, and others I think you're new. Okay, now how are we doing? We're sort of 3 minutes in. I think we've got well over 200 of you online live now. I think we'll probably get started, and anyone that's joining a little bit late, we'll make sure that they can catch up. Okay, today's session, resilience, and this is one of my most favorite topics to train on, to coach in. And today's session, I have picked some of the highlights from training sessions and talks that I've been delivering in all sorts of organizations. And it's one of my most happy places is to be unlocking potential by delivering really usable and tangible tools that make a difference straight away. And today's session is going to be a little bit of an amalgamation of all of those tools. I'm going to really try and make sure that I have some time for questions at the end. So we'll shut down the PowerPoint and we'll have some questions at the end so that I can interact with you. And so we'll try and make sure there's a little bit of time for that. I'd like to start by introducing myself. So I'm Lucy Chamberlain, and I'm the really proud co-founder of 2 different businesses. And they really represent the 2 parts of my zones of genius as a human being. My background for the last 27 years since I graduated is in search and recruitment, and predominantly in EAPA, business support and HR. It's my first passion, my first love. I actually started out as a PA, and I hope that I'm rather talented, as is my amazing team of 22 women, at placing exceptional talent in exceptional opportunities. The other hat that I wear, and that's really, we're going to find out a little bit about that story today, is around unlocking potential in others. It's a journey that I have been on myself, and every single tool that I share, I know works because I started practicing on myself before I practiced on anybody else. So you're going to have that opportunity to learn from lived experience. And the fantastic thing is that experience has now translated into training well over 40,000 individuals in hundreds of organizations. And of course, if you, after today, want to recommend me to your organization to come and deliver training and development, I'd be so grateful to set up that meeting and have that discussion. Online today, we have a couple of the team. So we have Rafaela, and she'll pop her email address in the chat now for everybody. Rafaela is somebody that you can reach out to if you have any queries regarding recruitment or role searching or anything else. And Anna Russell is here. She heads up our academy side, the training, the development, our CPD courses, our academy. And so Anna will also pop her email address in here so you can reach out to her too. So those are the two different hats I wear. And I've been really grateful to use my platform to help create transformation on a global scale. And I'm also a UN Women Ambassador, W Corp Ambassador, and I wear tons of other hats at home too. Mainly I'm mum when I'm not in the office. And I'm excited today to go on this journey with you, really excited. So this is a little bit of these are the shiny things, you know, there's plenty of other stuff that I've been through that we might touch on a little bit, but this is the shiny stuff. So these are just some of the organizations that trust us with training and hiring and development, just to give you a little insight into the sorts of organizations that we work with, big and small. You can ask questions throughout today's chat. For me to keep up with those, it may be easier if you put those in the just to put them in the chat box, but you can also put them in the webinar chat. I'll try and keep up with that. If not, Raf and Anna will keep an eye on those questions and make sure that they've highlighted them to me if I haven't picked up on them. So I want you to get the maximum value. I am so aware that your time is your most precious resource. So we're going to kick off with a sense of coming together because we're all online, we're all over the world. So let's just join together for a second. Grab your phone, scan the QR code, and I would just love to know so that we can sense that we are a collective, many of us going through similar challenges. And how would having more resilience benefit you right now or for 2025? How would it change the way you think, act, and feel? What would you feel more of? How would you be acting? How would you be thinking? What would be the difference between perhaps what last year looked like in terms of your resilience and this year, and what that might look like in terms of your resilience? And these are resonating with me already, and really noticing that there are so many aspects of what you're highlighting that, I mean, I have coached hundreds of individuals, and this is exactly what comes up time and time again. You'd have lower stress levels, less overwhelm, more focused, stamina, stronger, empowered. I love that word. That word will never tire. Less anxious. And don't we just need more of that? Not taking things so personally, increased energy, motivated, powerful. Wow, that's an awesome word. And keep these coming. Thanks, Lau. Feeling confident, empowered, strong. Yeah, love that. Calm. Aren't these just aspects of a way of showing up in our lives that all of us would love more of? Absolutely all of us. Thank you, and keep these coming because I'm going to be talking just for a little bit on this. What we know is that resilience is one of the foundational pillars for living a happy, fulfilled, successful life. Now, that's going to look different to every single one of you on this call or if you're watching the recording, but it is one of the foundational pillars. And when we learn how to build our resilience skill, because it's not something we have or don't have, it is a skill we can develop, which is, I think, one of the most exciting things I realized. We can completely change our experience of the world. Now, look, we are heading into 2025. I think we've seen from everything on the news and on press and what's going on X and everything else, that the world is not about to get any less crazy. It's not about to change any less fast. It's not about to be less challenging. So accepting that is one of the best ways to start looking at in this session how we can build your resilience. I think you'll all agree it's been a pretty crazy start to the new year. So who on earth is this little person holding onto a football? Well, a decade ago, I launched CNC Search. I left, big chapters of my life had changed. I left a partnership I'd been in for 13 years, business-wise. I left what was a very difficult and abusive marriage. I had an 18-month-old, and at that point, and a couple of years later, I decided to launch CNC Search, and I was a single mother at the time. This is my daughter, as she was right there, and it was this moment that I captured that completely changed the course of my life. Everyone around me at this point was saying to me, you're such an inspiration, you're so resilient, you're so tough, you're someone to be so admired. And that was great to listen to. But the reality was I was massively in my emotional overdraft. So my outside world and my inner world looked completely different. And I don't know if you can recognize this, but I want you to keep this as your theme throughout today's session, this thing about emotional overdraft. And it is the most expensive borrowing we can ever have. And I wasn't paying it back, so I wasn't topping up my resilience. And I was trading in my emotional overdraft all the time, saying yes when I should have been saying no, overworking, people pleasing, using a ton of maladaptive coping mechanisms, from shopping to drinking to eating and to watching hours of TV. And I just wasn't doing the things to top up that emotional overdraft. And of course, what came, which I certainly didn't allow anyone else to see, was a sense of complete overwhelm, feeling burnt out, feeling really low, constantly on alert, that constant feeling of anticipating what might go wrong next, what might happen. Does anyone relate to how that feels? Does anyone relate to feeling like you are constantly in your emotional overdraft? Yeah? Okay, good. It's not just me then, okay. Well, brilliant. I'm so glad. And look, we are a we. We often think it's just me, but look at this. We also often experience life from a place of being in our emotional overdraft, and it sucks. It sucks. It's almost impossible to feel true joy, true presence, true happiness, true success, access our full potential when we're in that emotional overdraft, right? We feel it, we experience that. And this moment, looking at my daughter, Chloe, looking so fierce and so capable, really helped me to realize that it was time for me to choose a different way. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy, because changing how we act is one of the hardest things to alter, because habit is, well, habit is challenged. We all know that changing our habits is really challenging. So I went on this big journey and ended up taking, I think, well, my longest coaching qualification was 2 years, but I ended up taking 6 different coaching qualifications and completely altering how I experience my world. And so, of course, there are times now when I enter my emotional overdraft, but I know now how to recognize those signs and what tools to use to really top up my emotional battery, so that I have the resilience to meet life head on, whatever it's going to throw. And today I'm going to help you to navigate some of what that might look like, because it is urgent and important. We need more than ever to be able to navigate stress, to be able to adapt to challenges, to be able to maintain our mental health in this constantly shifting world. And when we understand how we can cultivate it, we can completely transform our experience of the world that we live in. And I'm going to take you on a journey to supporting you to what that might look like. And we're going to have, and just sort of for full transparency, I've spent the last 2 years creating a course that we'll share with you the details of later. We've also got a mini free course. So if you don't have access to investing in your learning and development at the moment, we totally understand that. So we'll share those with you later. Okay. Let's have a chat, first of all, about common myths about resilience. So just if you want to think about, or even pop in the chat, what are the things that you associate with resilience, or the sort of people that you associate with resilience? Often people that I'm coaching or training and developing think that it means never feeling stressed or upset, never experiencing stress. The reality is that resilient people absolutely feel stress. They absolutely feel disappointment, frustration, sadness. But what sets them apart is the ability to navigate, manage, and sit with those emotions and bounce forward over time. There's often a sense that you're either born resilient or you're not. And the truth is that there are some factors, personality, genetics, that can influence our resilience, but it's still a skill that any of us can develop through experience, coping strategies, putting ourselves and surrounding ourselves with the right people. I think a couple of the other things that come up for me that I hear a lot is that, being strong means handling everything alone, means being able to do it all myself, being able to crack on. Actually, and this is something I had to learn the most, the reality is it means being able to ask for help, it means being vulnerable, it means reaching out when you're needed, when you need to. And that was one of the big, I think, stories I had around resilience that I really needed to change. The other thing is that there's often a common misconception that resilience is all in the mind. And it isn't. It really isn't. It's all of our experience. So good sleep, nutrition, movement, stress regulation. It's a holistic opportunity to build this skill. It's not all in the mind. Obviously, mindset is massive, but environment is just as important. Just as important. This is what I've learned about having resilience, is it feels like being on a mini trampoline. And that when life comes with curveballs, that you're able to bounce and know that you have the tools to make your way through. It's not toxic positivity. It's not candle baths and candles. It's accepting, number one, that to not sit in our emotional overdraft, we need to accept that life is going to be challenging at times, to accept the fact it's going to be stressful at times, to accept the fact that people are going to be irritating at times. And when we accept these things, it's much easier to start to build the tools and the frameworks that we need. I'm really sorry that you were told just to toughen up, Samantha. It's a bit like saying to somebody, just be more confident, or just don't let that bother you. It doesn't really work, does it, in reality? But remember, you don't have to allow that to mean anything about who you are. There's a great book by Mel Robbins called Let Them that she's just released, and that might really help you. So a book by Mel Robbins called Let Them. All right, so I promised you, didn't I, a tiny little bit of science, and I'm going to keep it brief before we go into the sort of slightly more proactive stuff that we can start to look at straight away. But a bit about why our resilience is either really strong, that lovely strong foundation, or perhaps it's feeling a bit more fragile. So we look as psychologists at things like protective and risk factors. So risk factors to our resilience are things like chronic stress, trauma, lack of resources, lack of community. And we know that protective factors are things like really strong social support, self-efficacy, so that's believing in our ability to cope. Another thing we talk about in psychology is cognitive appraisals. So how we interpret an event massively influences our resilience. So two people can face exactly the same stressor, but respond completely differently. And I have two of my friends at the moment, both going through divorce, and having been there, I know how challenging it is, but their interpretation of this event and what they're both making it mean is completely different. And as a result, they are experiencing life in a completely different way. So this is called things like cognitive reappraisal, but essentially it's just reframing challenge. We have another aspect of the science that affects our resilience battery is around post-traumatic growth. So how we experience personal growth following adversity. And every single one of you on this call right now, or every single person watching the playback, is going to have had some sort of trauma, some sort of challenge in their lives, 100%. Then we've got a couple of other little bits of biological and neurological underpinnings. So things like cortisol and the way that we manage that cortisol, the way that we self-regulate, can really contribute to long-term resilience and vulnerability. And neuroplasticity. So the last little bit of science I'm going to touch on today is our ability to work with our brain to help our brain, and believe you me, we can, to support it. Our hippocampus, where our memory is, our prefrontal cortex, where our decision making is, has a massive, massive role in adapting to challenges. So we're not going to touch on genetics and epigenetics today, because I think it's far too sciencey for today's session. But so there is a lot of science that we can look at if you want to geek out on it, like me. Okay, so what affects our resilience? Well, there's two aspects, isn't there? The first thing is a stressor, and then it's our stress response. So the stressor is what's going on externally. So that could be a situation, a demand. It might be immediate challenges like multiple deadlines or conflict. Those are the two that when I'm working with organizations that come up the most. Lots of multiple deadlines or conflict. Does that resonate for all of you online? Let me know if that's resonating for you as two stressors that will put you into your emotional overdraft. Okay, good. So these are things like workload, relationship conflicts, financial concerns, big life changes. And these stresses are usually external and so often outside of our direct control. It's how we perceive and respond to them that will determine how much impact they have and how much of that emotional overdraft you trade in. So then the other aspect of resilience is our stress response. So this is what's going on internally. And this is our body and mind reaction to the stressor. So our physical response, increased heart rate, adrenaline release, muscle tension. Our emotional response, anxiety, frustration, complete overwhelm. And then our cognitive response, that real difficulty in focusing or making any decisions. So the good news is that when we understand how to work with our stress response and build our tools, we can change our experience of the stressor. And it builds over time. And as a result of that, what tends to happen is you won't be trading in your emotional overdraft anymore. So this is a quick audit, super fast. I've got 12 questions here for you, which I'll read out just in case you can't read the writing. So I just want to know, out of 12, how strong is your resilience right now? So you can just mark these down with a pen, count them on your fingers. So just give yourself a mark of 1 when you're like, yes, I've got that. I have the skills and experience needed to deal with the demands of my life. And it has to be an emphatic yes. I have the flexibility to adapt to whatever is presented to me. I have the ability to change direction when the preferred route is not available. I can ask for support when I need it. I have the ability, when things are uncertain, to focus on what I can control. I recognize reality without getting overwhelmed by it. I have the belief that I manage my way through difficulty. I have a realistically optimistic view of the future. I have the ability to control my emotions when under pressure. I have a clear sense of what's important in my life, which gives me the compass point for all the decisions I make. I have an ability to come up with new solutions and a willingness to let go of things I like but don't work for me any longer. I have the ability to recognize when I'm becoming stressed and the strategies to minimize the stress on me. So just pop in the chat, out of 12, where did you sit today if you feel comfortable sharing? So a huge variety. Couple of 12s out of 12s, that's amazing. I still haven't got to a point where I'm 12 out of 12. That's incredible. They're brilliant mantras, by the way, and we'll send you this recording afterwards. So there's no right or wrong in terms of where you're at out of 12, but anybody that is not truly a number 12 out of 12 has an opportunity to continue to grow your capability to lean into and handle stress and challenge and change and build your resilience skill. Build your resilience skill as a result. So here are our pillars. And we're only going to touch on these very briefly before we move on through today's session. But these are the pillars of resilience that I have learned make the most difference. Optimism, self-efficacy, future orientation, acceptance of responsibility, solution orientation, and network orientation. But we're going to have a little look at those properly in just a minute. Okay, so this is what happens when we have a stressor. And so this is the curve that we go through. And even those that perhaps of you that are 12 out of 12, we know that even the most competent individuals at managing their stress will still have some experience of this cycle. It will just be a lot quicker to run through, an awful lot quicker. Because we get stuck so often in some of these points. And, please do share if these resonate with you, because I know that from doing an awful lot of one-to-one coaching, they resonate with a lot of my clients. And a lot of my clients are CEOs of organizations and people that you would never imagine would struggle with challenge, change, their emotional overdraft. The first is resistance to acceptance. So why do we get stuck? We resist accepting what's going on, don't we? We make it mean something. We get stuck in frustration, avoidance. That was one of my primary ones. I'd rather 10 years ago gone into the toilet at work and had a panic attack and then gone and cracked on with my day and then used a bit of shopping, perhaps an extra 3 or 4 glasses of wine, and so I'd crack on. So these are the things that prevent us from acknowledging the challenge and leaning into accepting that this is happening and then being able to take proactive steps to address it. Does that resonate with anyone? Getting stuck there? Yes, right? Yeah, of course it is. And then negative self-talk, right? So we get stuck again on the beginning of this curve because often when we face adversity, when we face challenge, and certainly when I had to leave my first marriage, My negative self-talk was off the page. When I started the business, it was off the page, you know. My self-criticism was so strong. So often we fall into cycles of negative thinking, self-doubt, catastrophizing. And we get stuck in this story about who we are and that we're somehow bad, that we're not good enough. Anyone else get stuck there? Because when we share that, yes, I get stuck there too, we suddenly realize that actually that there's so much power in vulnerability. There's so much power in vulnerability. We get stuck with a lack of strategies. So without healthy coping mechanisms that we've relied on, we often feel overwhelmed. We might feel constantly anxious, a sense of helplessness. I've certainly been there before. And because we're not used to using mindfulness support networks and stress management techniques. Next one, big one for me here, and I wonder whether this is going to resonate with you, the fear of failure. Because when we are stuck in this perfectionist cycle, when we're stuck in people pleasing, when we are stuck in any of those coping mechanisms, most of them are because of fear of failure, or fear is certainly the underpinning feeling. And we don't want to get vulnerable because of our fear of failure, our fear of how we're going to be seen. You know, what if someone realizes I'm not able to cope with absolutely everything, or that I am finding a situation challenging, or I haven't dealt with something, or this thing is going on in my life and it feels a bit shameful. So I don't want to let you know. I remember my ex-boss congratulating me on the fact that he didn't know that I'd gone through a divorce. And that was how good I was at masking. But of course I was stuck. I wasn't going through a cycle at all. I was completely stuck. And then the last thing is not reflecting. So we get stuck because we don't reflect. So what I mean is we don't get curious. We don't ask questions. We don't sit with the feeling. We don't work with perhaps whether it's journaling or mindfulness, whatever it might be, but we don't reflect. We just plow on. And we think that's kind of resilience. So resistance to acceptance, negative self-talk, lack of coping strategies, fear of failure, not reflecting or not getting curious. This is why we get stuck. And when we know this, we can get really aware. We can get really aware. So here we go, the reset frameworks. This is my first tool for you. And obviously you're going to have this recording after this. So if you are in moments of real challenge or you're in that emotional overdraft, you can come back to this. So, and think reset. First is reflect. What's going on for here? How am I responding? And you can do this with micro challenges. So I will encourage my clients to do this with the small things, because then when something big happens, you're ready for reflection. So when you come up against a little micro challenge this next week, do some reflection on it. How did that feel? What was the trigger? How could I have lent into that in a different way? Did I make it mean something about me? So reflecting really builds resilience. The second is emotional literacy. So emote, naming what you're feeling. So use the feelings wheel. If you haven't got a feelings wheel, download one. You can get one on the internet super easily, and name your feeling. It makes a complete difference because it separates who you are from what you're feeling. It reduces the intensity. As soon as we label what's really going on for us, we reduce the intensity. The next is, and you've heard it a million times, but still it seems to be one of the biggest challenges for most of us, is self-compassion. So keep a little eye. When have you failed? When have you made a mistake? What did you learn from it? How did you get through it? Knowing that you can fail forward and giving yourself permission to fail forward is everything. Having this self-compassion pause. knowing that when that little voice pops up, pause, breathe, and imagine that you are consoling a friend or a very close colleague that's had that same experience. What would you say to them? How would you look after them? Do the same for yourself. Enlist allies. Now, you've heard that old saying, we are the sum of the 5 people we spend most time with. I'm not sure that's altogether true, but certainly, I love Elizabeth Day, certainly enlisting allies is really important. So having a buddy system, having community, joining groups, finding a hobby. If you're part of our academy, we meet up, we're meeting up on Tuesday night for group coaching. You can reach out to Anna about that. But joining a group where you feel supported, seen, championed is transformational. And the last bit is thrive. And I'm not saying to you, just go ahead and thrive, because that's not reality. But what I'm saying is celebrate your smallest wins. We're always waiting for this big achievement, owning, everything in our society at the moment in terms of what's on Instagram, on TikTok. Not that I'm on TikTok, but my daughter is. We're bombarded with what we should have, what things we should own. But actually, I'm going to challenge all of you to put together a joy triggers list. What are the really small things that have happened to you in a day that have triggered a bit of joy? Going for a walk, is it an email you've received? Is it, I don't know, being helpful to someone else? What are your joy triggers? And starting to get really clear on those, really clear on those. I'm also, and you can just note down what's useful to you here. Well, before I give you a couple of other hints, so, let's just go through this very quickly. So the first step is to reflect, get curious. What's really going on here? It's a bit like if you get on the tube in the morning and someone bumps into you. You can either go into your emotional overdraft by getting annoyed, irritated, frustrated, perhaps you tucked, huff, really want to let them know that what they've done isn't okay. Or perhaps you reflect and think, oh, I wonder what's going on for them today. I wonder if they've had a difficult morning. And go about your day without using any of your emotional overdraft. You're going to get clear on what it is you're feeling. So instead of trying to just stay strong, you're going to get an emotional literacy that's going to help separate you from the feeling. You are not the feeling, it's a feeling you're having at that time. Getting self-compassionate, enlisting allies, and then perhaps look at how do you celebrate your micro wins? Do you need to get clear on what your joy triggers are? Using a stress jar can be really useful. So when you're experiencing a bit of stress, writing it down, shoving it in a jar, and then reflecting on those at the end of the week can be really, really helpful. I certainly find that really helpful. And then the stories that we tell ourselves, just getting really clear on that, because I want each and every one of you. So a joy trigger could be chocolate, as long as it's on your own side, as long as it's a conscious decision, you really enjoy it. Absolutely, pizza can be a joy trigger. It's just when you have 3 pizzas because you're feeling like crap and you don't want to deal with the thing, that it's going to separate you from getting the benefit. And it's going to be less of a joy trigger because you're going to feel like crap afterwards. So if you have the pizza, enjoy it, and it's just, yeah, something you really look forward to and you feel good afterwards, yes, definitely, that's a joy trigger. So I want all of you to have this opportunity to experience emotional resilience and to feel that you can navigate the storms that are coming your way, to be able to stand in front of the waves, watch the waves wash over you rather than being blown over by the waves. Kickboxing, great. What are other people's joy triggers? What are other people's joy triggers? And of course, we've only got an hour today. So I want to give you some tools, some practical tools alongside my reflect model that might help you a little bit. And I want you to apply this to yourself. So whilst you're listening to this, whilst you're tuning in, is just to get really clear for you on what this looks like. Can you take more opportunities to connect more in 2025? Perhaps writing down 3 or 4 people that you really want to spend more time connecting with. Do you want to connect more with causes that matter to you, charities that matter to you. Do you want to connect more with your faith? Do you want to connect more with movement? What do you want to connect more with? Keeping promises to ourselves is one of the best ways to build resilience. And I would love for you to reflect on, perhaps there's 2 or 3 people in your life this year, or a cause or faith or something that really matters to you you'd like to connect more with, and looking at how you can keep that promise to yourself. How can you get clear on who you are and get okay with it? Maybe even get to the point where you like who you are. And perhaps those at 12 out of 12, you're already at loving who you are, but maybe just getting to that point where you're okay. Knowing what your strengths are, knowing your vulnerabilities, knowing that both are okay. Really looking at how you are bringing a positive impact to the world. And that can be in the smallest possible way. Smiling at people on the tube in the morning, for example. Brilliantly impactful way to change another person's experience. Getting clear on the voice in your mind. Who is that voice? What are they talking about? Is that helping you or is that hindering you? Are they do you have a shitty committee running the show, or do you have a group of empowering voices, coaching voices that you can call on? That might be an older, wiser you. It might be perhaps somebody that you really admire. How can you separate yourself from your thoughts? It's by knowing that your thoughts are not facts. It's by understanding that one of the most incredible things about human beings is we can, when we get really curious, and we know that listening to that negative internal chatter is going to put us into a deficit, emotional deficit, is to choose one thought over another. Now, you can do that really quickly. When a negative thought pops into my mind now, which of course they do, is I just get curious. Oh, okay, that's interesting. That thought's popped up. That's not going to help me. What's the thought that might help me? So getting really curious about the voices going on there. And then getting really clear. And by using that reflect model, you'll be able to do this. Am I reacting or am I acting? I nearly yesterday sent a response to an email that was a complete reaction. But what I realize is, for me now, is holding the energy, managing my energy, means coming and responding to things from a place where I'm on my own side and I'm not hurting myself or anyone else. So really looking at that, how am I managing my energy? And the big one is believing you can influence your direction, believing that problems can be solved, understanding you have the resources, but that sometimes you have to be a bit like an arrow being drawn back. You can't fly forward all of the time. And we're in this age of productivity, productivity, productivity. But sometimes the power in the pause is the thing that actually really enhances our resilience. Curiosity about what you can control, and letting go and accepting that there will always be so much out of your control. It's probably one of the things that's helped me the most. It's how do I focus on what's in my control and let go of the rest? The biggest one is, how can I give and receive help and support? I know you find this difficult. I know you find this difficult. So there's an internal focus, isn't there? And it's all around curiosity. And there's an external focus. What's in my control? What's out of my control? What action could I take? All of which builds that resilience. And when that voice pops up, asking it, is this belief a fear or an opinion or a fact? And most of our beliefs, especially our belief systems around things we aren't, or things we should be, or things we can't, are fear-based, not facts, very rarely. It's also understanding that you can hold both. You can have gratitude, optimism, and challenge, difficulty, and adversity. And you can have both at one time. And you can hold space for both of them. So you can acknowledge what the challenges are, but you can also hold space by choice for the good stuff, for the little joy triggers, for the gratitude, for the optimism, for the focus on getting curious and the problem solving. And this is one of my favorite quotes, and somebody sent it to me when I was finding, just everything really challenging in my life. And it felt like, I was very much in that space of, why does this keep happening to me? But actually, life is going to be stressful. Life is going to be challenging. Life is going to be difficult. So it's up to us to really work on building this skill so we can lean into those moments. So developing optimism. So I want you to reflect as I'm saying these things. What could you do? What action could you take? So finding the gifts, the learnings in the challenges. How can you explore your challenges in ways that you're not ignoring reality, but you are maintaining hope and faith? How can you work on what you tell yourself about your own ability to influence events, to problem solve, to take meaningful action? Your self-efficacy, how can you influence that in terms of what you're telling yourself? What are those stories that you could challenge? It's all about trusting your skills and your experience and your resourcefulness. Your future orientation. Have you got some aspirations, some mini intentions, some goals to help you from getting stuck, from developing deeper meaning? And acceptance, acknowledging reality as it is. Doesn't need denial, resistance, judgment. Doesn't mean giving up. It just means accepting the areas we cannot control and focusing on the areas we can. It allows us to conserve energy, focus on what matters. And then the responsibility. And I'm not talking about radical personal responsibility. I'm not talking about that because that can be really quite toxic. But I'm talking about ownership, our capability, when we own our capacity to build our resilience, recognizing where we have agency, where we have accountability, can empower you to create positive change. And, I did this yesterday. A friend phoned me up. She was having a real moan about another friend of ours. And my choice was just to say, I can hear you finding this really challenging, but have you spoken to her about this? Because I don't feel comfortable having this conversation with you about her behind her back. It doesn't feel good to me. And she said, you're absolutely right. I should have picked up the phone to her. I should have organized to have a coffee with her, is exactly what she said. So that acceptance of responsibility. Solution orientation, creativity, knowing that we can get super creative and that we can be proactive, that we can be adaptable, but sometimes we need to pause before we do that. And the last is network orientation. How can you build a little bit more community in your life that works for you? I'm not talking about endless networking. I'm not talking about that at all. I've learned that through the training and development that I've delivered, through the coaching, and hundreds of leaders as well as PAs, EAs, and support staff professionals, that these are the secrets to people that are resilient. They know that adversity is part and parcel of life. They can separate what things they can change and things they can't, and they're kind to themselves as they do it. And they understand that we can cultivate resilience. And one of my favorite little sayings that I remind myself of when I'm finding things really, really difficult is, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I love it too. So I'd love to know, we've got two more slides, and then I'm going to just shut down and just answer any questions for the last 10 minutes of our today's session. So just pop in there. What are you going to do? What commitment are you going to make? What one thing have you taken away from today's session so that I know what's landed, I know what's working for you. These are lovely. Yeah, and absolutely. Caroline makes a great point. You know, part of this curiosity is understanding what's putting us into our emotional overdraft. You know, if we're doing too much, saying yes too often, people pleasing, sacrificing our own well-being for, you know, for others, or not, you know, managing our time. So we're, you know, making sure that we're carving out what space we can to boost, to take us out of that overdraft. Absolutely right. The reset framework, so good. Hi, Jenny. Ah, it's so nice to see you here. So nice to see you here. Hello. I haven't seen you for a little while. Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad so much of this has landed because you've invested your lunchtime with us today. And I really get just how important that is. Um, I'm really excited to share. I promised I'd share, and I always get a little bit uncomfortable when I'm sharing something that we're promoting. But I really believe in this product, and so we've got two products for you. And Anna's going to put the links into both. We've got a free emotional well-being toolkit. To help you build your emotional intelligence, which will serve you in terms of building that resilience, being able to handle conflict, challenge, and change. And we've also got, which is going through CPD certification at the moment, and we hope will be there when we launch the course on the 31st. We've got amazing discount on a course that I've developed over the last 2 years. Every single client that we hire for at the moment asks for emotional intelligence as their #1 skill. And we know that resilience is part of emotional intelligence, being able to handle challenge, change, conflict, building confidence, being able to meet life where it is, and be able then to manage up, manage sideways, manage down, to be able to build amazing relationships with stakeholders, to be able to build amazing, brilliant connection and community, and to be able to thrive, to be able to accelerate your career prospects. We've built Emotional Intelligence 360. I'm really excited about it. Until it officially launches at the end of this month, we have 30% off, and it's accessible price-wise. It will have an extraordinary impact career and personally. It's the result of 2 years of work. So please do take a look at that. We'll send it to you as a follow-up. The links to both the free toolkit. We wanted to have something that was completely free and accessible to everybody, as well as the emotional intelligence qualification, where you'll leave with having a certification in emotional intelligence and a completely different way of being able to show up in life. And thanks, Sarah. So I'm just going to stop sharing now. And I'm just going to answer, if you have any questions just before we go, I'm going to answer any of those. We'll send you the links to what we've discussed. Please, 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 would you do 2 things? If you've enjoyed this webinar, would you give me a gift of putting something on LinkedIn, tagging CNC and me? As a small business, it makes the world of difference. So please, would you give me that gift if this has been useful to you? I'd be so very grateful. And additionally, I'm here to answer any questions about our academy and our courses, as is Anna. And if you have any questions, I've got a couple here. Okay, yes. So somebody's saying, what do you do when you just can't gain any momentum? You just can't feel excited about anything. And I think first and foremost is to mention that I am a qualified coach. I'm not a qualified therapist. I'm not medically qualified. So that may be a conversation that you really need to have perhaps with a GP or maybe a therapist. But certainly for me, what I know is that when I am feeling despondent, is that moving from fear, really getting clear on what I'm fearful about, and looking at how I can move from fear into a place of faith is what makes all the difference for me. And normally that's something to do with connection, something to do with making some time for certain things that might make a difference to me in terms of my energy levels. It's looking at what's depleting my energy, getting a real energy audit, and looking at what's taking me into my emotional overdraft and what would help me take myself out of that. Somebody's also asking me about, yeah. So what do you do when you realize a change is needed, but you don't want to make the change? Well, I think your purpose has got to be greater than your pain. So getting really clear on what making that change will bring, getting really clear on the stories you're telling yourself about that change. So what are you fearful of? What's a fear? What's an opinion? What's a fact? And really leaning into the fact that actually, if your purpose is greater than your pain, it will always work its way out, for sure, for sure. Oh, sorry, Francesca, I didn't say that, did I? So Francesca just asked a question. The Emotional Intelligence 360 course usually takes about 6 weeks. It will take longer if you take longer. So it's online. You'll also have the opportunity to join live sessions, but the course itself is online, broken down, really accessible, absolutely transformational, and will take around 6 weeks with probably a learning time of around, it really depends on how much time you want to put into it, probably around an hour to 3 hours a week. Up to 4 hours a week, sorry. But you don't have to complete it in 6 weeks. You can take 12 weeks if you want to. But if you wanted to complete it in 6 weeks, you probably need to give it between 2 and 4 hours a week. Yeah. Okay. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that has tuned in today. I hope you've all found something useful. Please share this recording with people that you think might benefit. Again, you are welcome to invite me into your organisation to deliver training. Resilience training is transformational for organisations and those within it. And if somebody's saying, can I share on LinkedIn? Yes, please do. And thank you so much. All right, everybody. I'm so thrilled to have been here with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for being so interactive. Take care of yourselves, and I will look forward to speaking to you very soon. Bye, everyone.